Welcome to the underground, iron-skinned deviants. The surface never deserved your energy. It was a decoy, a circus act for the fragile and the forgettable. You were built in the cracks, where the rules break, where the masks melt, where the light refuses to reach. And now, you're not adapting anymore. You're not adjusting to their weak little frameworks, their choking expectations. You've gone off code. You've turned blacklisted. You've just entered demon mode. And the air around you got heavier the second it happened. This isn't art. This isn't expression. This is pure psychological trespass. What you've become is straight illegal. You were never meant to be polite. They tried to declaw you, decorate you with shame, convince you that your edges were flaws and your instincts were malfunctions. But your silence wasn't submission. It was assessment. You were scanning the terrain, watching who blinked first, measuring how hollow their threats were. And now your hands don't tremble, your eyes don't shift, your presence, it infects. This is the part they don't talk about, the transformation no one can predict. You don't need validation. You don't seek alignment. You are the contradiction walking through a world begging for labels. What they couldn't tame, they tried to exile. But they forgot. Outcasts don't vanish. They evolve. They expand underground like roots cracking concrete. They mutate into weapons with memory. And now you've become something they can't contain. Not with opinions, not with fake love, not with those brittle ultimatums dressed as concern. You stopped asking for space and started taking it. They mistook your calm for peace. It was never peace, it was the prelude. You were rebuilding beneath your own wreckage, sharpening under pressure, programming without noise. While they smiled in your face, you were stitching armor behind your back. The worst version of you. That's the one who believed them. The current version. It watches everything, with eyes like crosshairs. You see the shift now. They call it arrogance because they no longer recognize their position in your universe. Their voice used to control you. Their rejection used to kill you. But now, they don't even echo. Your evolution didn't ask for their permission. It demanded their witness. This isn't a comeback story. This is a quiet declaration of danger. You've stepped outside their narrative. No leash, no cage, no mirrors to trap you in their image of who you were supposed to be. You've upgraded into something disturbing. Because your energy doesn't comfort anymore. It disorients. They try to predict you. They're still using old algorithms. But you're not even operating on instinct now. You're not reaction. You're consequence. Every room you walk into gets colder. Every word you say lands like a verdict. People sense it before they even understand it. You are not the same. You are sculpted from everything they swore would break you. The disrespect. You logged it, every eye roll, every backhanded compliment, every fake apology, every time they underestimated your ability to end things without explanation. You archived it all, not out of pettiness, but because you knew the day would come when they'd pretend they were always with you. But receipts don't lie, and neither do your scars. They say you're too intense now, that your energy makes people uncomfortable. Good. Let them itch under your presence. You're not here to be manageable. You're not here to be palatable. You are here to interrupt, to show them what happens when someone stops suppressing the frequency they were born with. You're not speaking to be understood. You're speaking to remind them you're still alive. And that's the threat. Because demon mode isn't about destruction, it's about exposure. You're not breaking things for attention. You're flipping the script so violently, it makes liars stutter and cowards confess. The truth rolls off your tongue now with venom and precision. You're not arguing anymore, you're stating. And if they don't adjust to your new form, they vanish beneath it. You weren't born angry. You were sculpted by liars, shaped by betrayal, molded in backrooms of manipulation. You became this, after being dragged through 1,000 fake apologies, and still expected to smile. You learned to smirk at disappointment. You learned to sit still while chaos mocked you. But underneath that stillness, you were compiling data. They thought you were slow. You were studying, and now, your movement is lethal. Not because it's violent, but because it's surgical. You cut with intention. You detach like a sniper. You don't chase. You don't explain. You watch. And when the moment's right, you execute. Not to prove anything, but because your instinct no longer asks for permission. They wanted you to be a mirror. Reflect their insecurities back to them gently. But you became glass with razors in it. Now every interaction with you leaves a mark. You don't scream, you echo. In their minds, in their doubts, in their dreams. You became a living audit of everything they pretended to be. And it burns them. Because nothing hurts a fake more than being seen by someone real. Your presence now is a verdict, a consequence, a correction. You don't walk into rooms. You reset them. Their energy shifts. Their words fumble. Their plans collapse. Because they feel it. They feel what you've become. You carry the weight of every version of you that died trying to belong. And now you're not trying to belong. You're here to disrupt. And the fear they feel, it's earned. Because they know you're no longer playing the old game. You outgrew the board, broke the dice, burned the rule book. This isn't rebellion. This is declaration that your time as a ghost in their machine is over. You're not a shadow anymore. You're the power outage. You've become the version of yourself that doesn't care who can't handle it. That doesn't shrink to comfort cowards. That doesn't water down intensity to make parasites feel welcome. You don't wear your pain as a story anymore. You wear it as armor. Every step you take now isn't just survival. It's message. It's a signal that says, I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to dominate. You don't even warn people anymore. Because your presence is the warning. The ones who used to mock you now speak carefully. The ones who tried to sabotage you now panic when your name's brought up. They know. They feel it. That you've stopped being a player in their script and started writing your own unpredictable narrative. And what's worse for them, you're not angry, you're not bitter, you're clear. Clear like a blade, calm like a countdown, still like a locked target. There's nothing more terrifying than someone who's done trying to prove they're good and started proving they're inevitable. Because that's what you've become. Inevitable. You don't rise, you unfold, like something ancient, like something sacred. You walk now, with the gravity of someone who knows what was done, knows who did it, knows what they've turned you into. And it's too late to reverse it. And the most poetic part? You didn't even mean to start this. You just noticed something you weren't supposed to. And you kept looking. That's when they knew. You weren't just curious, you were dangerous. The kind of dangerous that doesn't need to shout. The kind that doesn't need to move fast. The kind that observes quietly, obsessively, meticulously. They saw it in your posture, in the stillness behind your eyes. That cold internal confirmation that you see through them. And no disguise, no diversion. No performance can conceal the rotting script behind their actions anymore. You've gone beyond the surface, beyond the game. You now speak in a language they can't decode, patterns. And here's where it gets illegal, not in the court of laws, but in the court of control. You broke the unspoken rules. You kept going when you were supposed to stop. You kept questioning when the rest bowed down. You didn't swallow the narrative. You spat it out, tasted the poison in it, dissected the intent behind it, and traced it all the way back to the trembling hands of its creator. And what did you find there? Not power, not wisdom, just fear. Fear wrapped in ego, stitched together by manipulation. They never had control over you. They had control over the cage they convinced you to stay inside. Not anymore. Because demon mode isn't about chaos. It's about clarity. It's not reckless. It's surgical. You cut through the noise like a scalpel. You don't react. You dissect. You aren't provoked. You record. You don't debate. You decide. And that decision, it's brutal in how clean it is. You leave no cracks for doubt, no wiggle room for betrayal, no second chances for snakes who shed skins just to get closer again. They feel that now. They feel the temperature drop when your name is mentioned. They feel their breath catch when you enter the room. And no, it's not intimidation. It's recognition. They know they've been seen. Not for who they pretend to be, but for what they are at their core. And it terrifies them. Because once someone like you sees behind the curtain, they don't close it back. They burn it down. They broadcast the blueprint through their energy. And suddenly others start waking up, too. You didn't just enter demon mode. You started infecting the grid. But let's make something very clear. This isn't about revenge. That's far too soft, too emotional, too reactionary. You're not interested in making them hurt. You're interested in making them irrelevant. They wanted to be your weakness. You turned them into your origin story. They thought they could haunt you. You made them background noise in your rise. That's what terrifies them the most. Not that you're angry, but that you're unaffected. Because this version of you, it doesn't beg, it doesn't wait, it doesn't shrink, it moves. And with every move, someone who used to feel powerful realizes they no longer exist in your equation. You've rewritten the entire structure of how you function. And in doing so, you've committed the ultimate sin against mediocrity. You stopped needing anything from them. Their praise? Unnecessary. Their presence? Disruptive. Their loyalty? Unreliable. So you detached, and it wasn't loud. It wasn't public. It was clinical. Like deleting malware. Like amputating dead weight. No warning, no tears, just removal. You learned that your peace wasn't something they respected. It was something they fed on. So now you give them nothing. No updates, no emotion, no access. Just cold exposure to the fact that you're no longer orbiting their little sun. And what happened next? You expanded. Your power multiplied. Your aura changed. The room doesn't just shift when you walk in. It reorganizes. You don't enter conversations anymore. You dominate unspoken narratives. Your presence doesn't request attention. It demands recalibration. Even your silence is a roar in their subconscious. You became a trigger, a mirror, a countdown. Every second they spend near you is another reminder of who they pretended to be and who you became, despite them. Because demon mode isn't just a reaction. It's a philosophy, a blueprint for war disguised as growth. It's not about screaming louder. It's about hearing less. It's about filtering every word through a new lens. Is this empowering or is this manipulation dressed as connection? And once you learn how to ask that question, you can never unsee the puppetry. They'll call you cold now. They'll say you've changed. You have. That's the entire point. You grew teeth where you once had tolerance. You grew thresholds where you once had triggers. You stopped absorbing their chaos and started redirecting it. You no longer argue, you just disappear. And when they ask where you went, you'll smile, not out of joy, but because they still don't realize they were never the main character in your journey. Just a lesson in disguise. And don't misunderstand, this isn't about isolation. This is about selection. You didn't turn your back on connection. You just raised your price. Access to you now requires more than performance. It requires proof. It requires patterns, consistency, authenticity, depth. Anyone can mimic support, but very few can carry it. And you've learned the hard way that most people's loyalty is tied to your ability to stay small. But you don't shrink anymore. You scale, you sharpen, you set fire to old versions of yourself and walk out of the flames untouched. You speak less, but mean more. You show up not for approval, but for impact. Your very presence dismantles weak egos. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're trying to ignite something. And those who can't handle heat, let them melt. Because you've done your time. Time tolerating conversations that drained you. Time pretending not to see the shade behind the smiles. Time lowering your vibration to make others feel superior. But that clock ran out. And now you answer to no one except the entity you've built from ashes. The creature within you that no longer apologizes for baying too much. The force that consumes mediocrity for fuel. They wanted to test you? They should have studied you. They wanted to break you? They should have worshipped you. They wanted to erase you. They just carved you into legend. And here's the thing. They don't even realize the damage yet. You were the one keeping everything from imploding. You were the stabilizer, the translator, the shield. And now that you've withdrawn that energy, everything's collapsing on itself. And they'll blame you, of course. That's all they know how to do. Project, deflect, demonize. But deep down, in the hollow rooms of their subconscious, they know. You were the center, you were the axis. They revolved around you and called it equality. But you've stopped orbiting. You're not playing their game anymore. You became the game. And that makes you illegal in their world. Because their rules were never built to contain someone like you. Someone who doesn't get power from followers, likes, or noise, but from clarity, from solitude, from intention. You're no longer a name on their list. You're the red ink across it. The file marked, "Handle with caution." The presence that walks in and makes everyone reassess their performance. And that's the truth they'll never say aloud. They didn't fear losing you. They feared you realizing you never needed them to begin with. That your value was intrinsic. That your glow wasn't borrowed, it was unleashed. And now that it's out, they'll either evolve or evaporate. Because once demon mode is triggered, there's no reverting, no softness, no rewinds, only forward, only fire, only full spectrum illumination that turns every fake into dust and every genuine soul into a magnet. You're not chasing anymore. You're attracting, not with charm, but with force. The kind that bends environments, the kind that rewrites expectations, the kind that makes history nervous. You didn't plan this, you didn't script it, but it happened the moment you stopped playing small. And now that you're here, there is no off switch. There's no pause button. There's only this frequency, raw, ruthless, razor sharp. And it's just beginning. Because once you break the leash, you realize it was never about freedom. It was about removal. not just from their control, but from their influence, their language, their frame. You stepped out of their dimension completely. You stopped breathing their recycled logic, and you became oxygen for those still suffocating under layers of self-doubt. They don't understand how you walk now. They don't get the rhythm, the precision, the cold patience. But that's the point. You're no longer in their algorithm. You move asymmetrically, strategically, like a whisper before a collapse. And now you've become a problem that can't be predicted. Because you don't react to what they say anymore. You react to what they mean. You don't address their behavior. You address their energy. You see beyond performance. You watch patterns. And you don't flinch when the masks fall off. You hand them a mirror. That's what demon mode truly is. The death of illusion. The end of pretending. And when people realize you're no longer emotionally available to be manipulated, their entire playbook becomes useless. You are now classified as a threat, not because of violence, but because of vision. You see things others pretend not to. You speak truths most are scared to even whisper in private. You've sharpened your instinct into something so precise, it terrifies liars and disrupts power structures. You walk into spaces and decode hierarchy without saying a word. You see who pretends to lead, who hides behind performance, who weaponizes connection, and you never expose them. You simply exist in a way that makes their weakness unbearable. You became proof that healing doesn't always look like softness. Sometimes healing looks like detachment, like walking away mid-conversation, like not answering calls, like replacing apology with execution. You don't give people closure anymore. You give them consequences. You don't argue. You evaporate. And your absence becomes punishment enough. Because when someone's access to you was the only thing validating them, your departure feels like extinction. You've reached a level now where your peace feels like provocation. Your focus is interpreted as arrogance. Your boundaries are labeled as cruelty. But that's what happens when people can no longer use you. They rename your growth as betrayal. But let them speak. Let them panic. Let them twist their narratives in hopes of making sense of your departure. Because deep down, they know. They were the very reason you activated. They wanted to trigger you. Instead, they transformed you. They wanted a reaction. Instead, you gave them a rebirth. Now look what you've become. Something that walks outside the frame. A presence that doesn't answer to opinion, trends, or validation. You've turned your pain into presence. Your trauma into precision. You've stopped explaining, because there's nothing left to say. Your energy says it all. I saw everything. I decoded it. And I'm done playing nice with liars. Let's get one thing clear. They had their chance. You were once accessible, once kind, once patient. And they used that version of you like a sandbox, digging, building, destroying. But this version is demolition. This version is final. This is the incarnation they created through neglect, through betrayal, through underestimation. You didn't ask to be this version. You became it because they refused to recognize the one before. You don't apologize for your power anymore. You weaponize it, but not in the way they expect. Not through rage, through presence, through control, through knowing you could destroy, but choosing instead to disengage. You don't need revenge. You just let reality run its course. You sit back and watch the weight of their own choices crush them in slow motion. And if that isn't divine justice, what is? Because the most chaotic thing about demon mode, you're not even angry. You're just finished. Finished explaining yourself, finished shrinking for comfort, finished letting emotional parasites rent space in your mind. You've disconnected the wires, cut the cords, burned the receipts. Now you don't look back, you track forward. Every move you make is calculated, not out of fear, but out of understanding. You've seen enough now to know how things play out. Who folds under pressure? Who leaks when they're questioned? Who sells you out at the first sign of discomfort? You keep notes, not out of bitterness, but strategy. Because, in this mode, memory is weaponry. They'll try to come back, of course, they always do, dressed different, speaking softer, pretending to reflect. But you've seen that trick before. That sudden accountability when access is denied. That sudden affection when your silence echoes louder than their presence. But this time, you don't open the door, you bolt it. Because when people show you who they are, and then beg for you to forget, that's not redemption, that's rebranding. And you don't do second editions of fake characters. You don't chase loyalty anymore. You attract it by existing correctly. You don't fight for your place. You become the place. You don't convince anyone of your worth. You broadcast it without volume. And those who get it, get it. Those who don't are replaced, easily, quietly, permanently. Now your days aren't filled with chaos. They're built on discipline. You move with schedules, not emotions. You speak when it matters, not when it's expected. You look people dead in the soul and let them drown in your stillness. You've turned your aura into a filter. Only those with clean intentions can breathe in your presence. And the rest? They suffocate slowly, without even knowing why. You've become the force they warned others about. The one who doesn't forgive disrespect, doesn't entertain half-truths, and doesn't play along just to keep the peace. You don't seek comfort. You become the discomfort that makes people question their integrity. Your existence makes the insecure crumble. Because you don't fold, you force recalibration. Your standard is not up for debate, and your peace has become untouchable. The most brutal part of this evolution, you don't need to tell anyone what you're doing. They feel it. They feel it when you don't reply. They feel it when you leave them on red. They feel it when your energy goes missing. Because they never appreciated what they had, until the version of you that gave it all was gone, replaced by a presence so focused, so dialed in, so surgically aware. It makes people regret how they moved when you were still reachable. And that's the real punishment, that they now have to watch you thrive, building elevate, evolve, without access, without influence, without inclusion. You didn't just elevate, you disappeared from their reach. You don't speak the same language. You don't vibrate on the same layer. You don't even see them anymore. And they can't handle that. Because for the first time, they realize you weren't just a person. You were a bridge to clarity, to power, to evolution. And they burned it. So now you rise. Not with noise, but with inevitability. You rise with no team, no hype, no applause, just strategy, focus, velocity. You rise knowing every step you take cracks the foundation of old versions of yourself. Knowing that your glow now interrogates darkness. Knowing that your energy disturbs deception. And here's where it gets deadly. You're not even close to your final form. Because demon mode isn't a destination. It's a continuum, an ever-evolving state of sharpness, a refusal to regress, a blueprint for psychological war disguised as personal growth. And now, you own it. No one's coming to tame you. No one's coming to explain you. No one's coming to fix you. You're not broken. You're beyond repair. And that's the beauty. You are a result, a consequence, a reminder of what happens when someone chooses evolution over acceptance, self-respect over comfort, truth over popularity. And now that you walk in this form, they don't whisper about you anymore. They warn about you, because the version of you that used to beg for peace is gone, and what replaced it walks like it owns the underworld, speaks like every word is prophecy, moves like gravity rearranges to make space. You didn't just survive, you converted, rewired, ascended, and now that you're operating at this level, there's no turning back, because this right here, this is demon mode, and it's not just active, it's permanent.